first. Anyone?
Any questions?
Yes, any question?
My question is about medical marijuana,
Medical marijuana.
which I'm okay with, but one of the issues that we're looking at is the legality of how it can be used in an apartment building when you have children that may be walking down the hall and the fumes of marijuana are coming out. So Davis Call is pretty proactive. We're looking at the legalities of how to word that you can bake it, eat it, whatever, but you can't smoke it in the building, that it comes out of your apartment and children are inhaling it, which we have an issue.
Right. So, medical marijuana is really a moving target right now. There's a lot of legal issues dealing with it, and if you're running an apartment complex or a housing unit, you want to know how to deal with it as you framed it right now. Right now, there's a lot of laws that are coming through. You need to meet probably the legal standard for apartment managers and equal housing opportunities. But on a bigger issue, I think that the law is going to be more defined in the future. Right now, quite frankly, the law is not clearly defined. I can tell you with the current laws that are in place in the state of California, we as a police department comply with those laws. So as far as not only accessibility, but also possession of marijuana for personal use when you carry a medical marijuana card. So I would actually refer you to your legal representative because that's a very touchy issue. If you get federal housing money, the Federal Housing Authority could not fund you if you violate federal law as it relates to possessing or dispossessing marijuana. So I would be a little bit careful about that and refer that to your...
Yeah, we're doing that now. It's not, it's just how they...
So that would be a good idea.
Some do that are using it legitimately, I believe in it. I've seen the work that the pants made. But, okay.
It's not similar as far as the medical side of it, but you could look at prior legal action with cigarette smoke going from one apartment to another.
Yeah. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I missed the whole issue
I'm not a
with
cop,
the gun
by the way.
in the school.
So on Friday, a student came to school, a 16-year-old with a loaded handgun. And so we got a call for service. We have school resource officers that are at the high school. And they work with the security department to not only isolate and identify the student, but handle the issue. And so right now, obviously we can't provide a lot of information because of the juveniles involved with that incident. But it's quite alarming, obviously. It is not a regular incident. We've had past incidents where students have brought weapons or firearms to school. The firearms is a rare incident. The weapons are more common, but it's still an uncommon incident. And it's something obviously that's very concerning. So I can tell you that we have worked close with the school district. They responded appropriately. We responded quickly. And obviously the main theme in this is making sure our children are protected. And so I think that's, I don't know if you have any other specific questions.
No, I just hadn't heard about it, but for that issue to be, given to the police so quickly and for it to be acted on is good. I mean, kids are pretty tight about things.
Right, and we're very proactive, and especially in the last few months, our PIO, who's Jeff Tudor, is actively pushing information out to the community on a regular basis of just what's going on. We're really excited. In the next about week or two, we have a demo right now on our website if you want to look at it. But in the next week or two, you're going to be able to see the majority of calls for service that police are going on. So it'll be by block, it won't be by specific address, and it'll be by call type. So you can it's in chronological order by time. You can see basically what's happening in your community. There's some things that won't be on there, so crimes that are protected. We go to medical calls or check the welfare, and we might have a mental case, which is protected by law. Some of our bigger crimes we'll actually do a press release on. But if you go to our website, all this information is on there, and really kind of provides you information about what's going on in your area of the community. So stay tuned for that and check out our website.
What's being done to increase security? I know there are more security staff at the high school and some liaison positions that are being increased. But what's being done, any talk about doing away with backpacks and things like that, or?
So, the one big thing about school safety is the responsibility primarily of the school. And we work in partnership with the school. And so any action like taking away backpacks or locking down the campus and having a closed campus and a true closed campus where kids can't walk on and off during the day. Things like that are policy decisions that have to come from the school. I can tell you, I just met with the superintendent last week before this incident even happened. We talked about the things that I think could improve school safety, but ultimately when it comes to implementing those things, those are the responsibility of the school district, and they have to make those policy decisions. I can tell you that the superintendent is very eager to continue to make improvements to the safety of the school and look at a variety of different things.
And do you know what's being recommended? What from your end? What other safety nets are being?
So one of the things is, and I believe so we have a second or third school resource officer in the school.
Second now and a third one coming.
Quite frankly, we have one school resource officer that was assigned to the high school, and then we're signing a second one right now this school year. You could actually use 3 or 4 school resource officers just at the high school. That doesn't even include the 9th grade campus, and certainly doesn't include the middle schools. And so one of the things we've done is applied for a grant and got funding to add additional staff that's paid for by the grant to provide the school resource program, which is an effective program because you have police on campus, which I think is an effective program. We're going to be revisiting our daytime curfew, which is the curfew that says that kids need to be in school, right? Based on the education code. We know when kids are out of school, they can become victims of crime, or they can commit crimes, or they can just be away from school, which is obviously a concern from a public safety standpoint. So we're working on making the revisions so that ordinance has some teeth in it, that parents have responsibility. I can tell you that working in the schools myself, the one thing that you hear constantly about the schools is from parents, I can't make my kid go to school. I mean, right? You get a 16, 15-year-old, I can't make him go to school. And so having some teeth in the ordinance, I think, and some intervention from community service programs, I think will help. And once you address those kids that are at risk, hopefully they'll become better students and better in the future.
Staffing levels pretty much up to snuff, in your opinion?
So I get that question a lot. Do we have enough police officers? How many police officers do you need? And at this point, we are supposed to be having 89 police officers, and that's how many we have. We have 2 right now overhires to fill some upcoming retirements. So really our staffing levels are set at 89. I can tell you, you can have over 100 police officers, and that would be great. And I think right now, we need to deal with the staffing that we have. It's a priority to put staff in the field, and so we're looking at ways to continue to move police officers in the field. We are very fortunate in this community to have tons of community programs that are run by police officers. That takes them away from the field, but the benefit, it focuses on crime prevention. And so right now it's not the perfect number, especially with the amount of crime that we have and the population, increase. The population increases and we're still dealing with the same amount of police officers. I don't know what ultimately was our highest count.
94.
94. So it would be nice to have more, but we're doing the best that we can with what we have. Has anyone tried calling the police department in the last month?
Yeah.
Anyone? Okay. So now that you call the police department, what do you get?
Busy.
Well, and
I actually got someone answering yesterday. I told you, a non-emergency.
okay. And so you went through now, which is something called the phone tree. This is not popular, the phone tree. And so what happens when you call the police department now, unless it's an emergency, you dial into a phone number and you get like the menu of services when you call Kaiser, right? So you go press 1, to report something to the police, plus 2 to talk to someone in training or abandoned vehicles. And a lot of people ask, I don't understand, why are we going to a phone tree? We want to call the police department anytime and actually speak to a live person. The honest part about and the decision that made, the reason why we switched specifically and went to a phone tree is because of staffing. So over the last year and a half, we switched to something which every police department in the state has switched to. We were one of the last cities to switch to something called E911, which is accepting the cellular phone calls emergency. So 2 years ago, you could be sitting here and call 911 in the city of San Leandro. Where do those calls go? Vallejo, CHP. And how long does it take to get back to San Leandro? 5, 10, 15 minutes? And you're trying to report an emergency. So we realized this is really not an optimum system. So statewide, it was funded to implement E911 into every dispatch center, which was great. The flip side to that is not only did our population increase over the last several years, but our calls for service that are coming into our dispatch center increased almost 20,000 calls with no additional staff. And every single phone call that comes into the police department goes to your emergency dispatchers. And sometimes there's only 2 in there. And the reality of it is a lot of the calls that come in are non-emergency calls, or they're calls that are funneled through other places in the department. So what we ask the community is bear with us. We're fine-tuning the phone tree, but really it's a necessity so that your 911 dispatchers are primarily dealing with emergencies. So if you don't have an emergency, it is going to take maybe a minute or 2 extra to get to who you want to get to, but it really has a business decision of why we need to do that. And I know that you want your dispatchers that are dealing with emergencies to focus on the emergency and not the car that's there at that moment in time. So a lot of police departments are going to this. It's not a perfect answer, and if I can get more dispatchers, we can take the phone tree off. But I think that that's not the reality right now. The reality is we need to deal with the resources we have. So.
How long will it take for somebody to get back to you after you say, if you see something that's not maybe criminal but suspicious on your street?
Yeah.
And so then you plug in whatever number is appropriate. How long will it take for somebody to get back?
So if you see something suspicious, that's considered non-emergency. Our response time to non-emergency calls are somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, depending on what we have going on. It could be as low as 2 to 3 if we have nothing going on. You'll speak to a dispatcher immediately, meaning you'll speak to a dispatcher, you may be put on hold to deal with a non-emergency call if we have an emergency call in progress. But it's, again, it's just prioritizing calls and putting the important calls first. But you'll go into the dispatch center if you want to report a crime in progress.
Are you guys reporting analytics around emergency versus non-emergency calls and the frequency of them?
Yeah, maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, with the new phone tree system, it's pretty new. It's great technology. It's new to us. It's been around forever, so they can give an accurate count of how many phone calls come in, and the person on the other end pushes 1 to go to dispatch or pushes 8 to go to traffic. They give us a breakdown of how many calls come in, and then of course we have a breakdown of how many 911 calls come in. The problem is we didn't start this until recently when the chief came. We looked at this program and started it, so we don't have a lot of data for a long period of time, but at the 6-month mark we're actually going to look, we're going to reevaluate the order of the numbers for the non-emergency calls, and then look at what we need to do staffing-wise and how we staff our dispatch center.
Are you allowed to share any of those numbers? Like how many emergency calls do you get per month or per hour?
And that's all. So that's all public information. We're using data right now to provide better services. So analyzing the data. All of our data generally is public information. It just depends on what kind of format you want the data in. So if you're asking, the state tracks our 911 data. If you're looking for that, we have that. If you're looking at response times, we have those types of things. So we have a variety of different data that we'll be pushing out, in the next year, so people know, what's your expectation in an emergency? How quick do you expect us to get there? There's state standards on that we want to meet. And I go back to the phone tree. We're not meeting our state standards on just picking up the phone on 911 calls. So we need to meet those standards. Even though I think it's 3 or 4 rings, we pick our phone calls up. In an emergency, I think the state standard is 3 rings.
For 10 seconds.
Yeah, so we want to meet that state standard, and so again, that's why we shifted to the phone tree. But pretty much all of our data is public information. It's just the format.
Before we answer any more questions, is there any question that you have that's specific to code compliance, animal control, traffic? Because we have these folks here now, so if you have something that's specific, yes, traffic. Sergeant Hudson. Brand. Yes,
I have a pet peeve when driving by these middle schools and grammar schools. For example, on William Street, I drive there daily, and what happens is it's not the kids, but it's the parents. They're jaywalking, they're teaching them bad habits, and they're cutting in front of you. And I've had minor altercations with parents asking them what is wrong with you, etc. And I think something needs to be done about that.
Currently, all the traffic officers that I supervise are rotating through the schools. So if they're not at that school at that particular day, they're probably somewhere else in town. And when we do get complaints, we usually saturate that next school once we do hear something about it. I know we already rotated through John Muir in the Williams area and made it down to Aurora. And I know last week they were working in the south end, but I'll address that when I get back and let them know about that. I know they were doing some double parking sites because a lot of people will double park to drop their kids off, and then their kids go between cars across the street.
Exactly.
So we're trying to address that. Believe me, it will also save us going out there and investigating the crash too. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes.
Speeding.
Speedy.
Randy, you're back up again.
The quick answer is don't do it.
Go ahead.
I've always got my eye in the mirror to see if Randy's around. I live at the corner of Victoria Court in Warwick.
Okay.
And Warwick is a little tiny street, but it's one of those streets that people take so they can miss Bancroft. And they come speeding down Warwick, and I've got some other residents here, Warwick residents, who can verify that. They come speeding down to, and it is just unbelievable. And then for me, on the corner there, since I'm retired, every once in a while I sit in the porch. I watch these cars take that turn onto Victoria to get up to the liquor store there on Victoria Court, and they take that turn right at the sidewalk. They're coming down and making that left-hand turn coming from Oakland. I've actually told some of the neighbors who park in front of my house, park away from the corner, because I actually have tire marks that are right on the curb. They come there so fast. I'm waiting for an accident, and I'm wondering, it can't be the only area where that kind of shortcutting happens. And I'm wondering what the police department and traffic can do to help us.
Well, we just actually got another complaint, I think the 300 or 400 block of Durant, where they cut through Durant. If you see that right by the store there,
Yes.
We did tried some traffic calming measures like radar trailers. Did just get more saturation patrols, which hopefully that curbs some of it. But unfortunately, a lot of it's hit and miss, like as far as to come in and force the area that you're in. Unless we happen to get there at that one window for that one person coming through, it's very difficult for us to target. But I'll pass that on also. We did put a trailer, I believe, in a 400 block of Durant probably a few weeks ago, you might have saw, which helps, but I'll get some people in the area where you're talking about.
And kudos on that barrier thing on San Leandro Avenue.
Where a little maze there.
It's a maze, yes it is. However, I feel much safer in going through that area now, rather than everybody just sort of going willy-nilly. Very good, thank you.
They've tried that. You probably know if you're talking at all about to traffic engineers, it's a long process to get anything passed. However, we try small things, whether it just be us with saturation patrols, putting a radar trailer through there, try different traffic calming measures as opposed to like a heavy enforcement, and then we'll step it up to enforcement. So we'll try to get some officers in the area. Sir?
Yes, an addendum, I guess, in your traffic or a footnote pertaining to the cars coming through on Dowling, Warwick, etc. They're blasting with these big basses. It's terrible. They vibrate the windows, etc. I mean, your eardrums are popping in. I don't know how they can even stay in the cars. And I just wonder if something could be addressed in that fashion.
Same thing. If the units are in the area enforcing, when we're talking about the speeders and people, I guess, exhibition of speed, they're enforced that also. And I've worked, my last tour in traffic a couple years ago, I spent a lot of time on Dutton, right by Roosevelt School in that general area. And believe me, a lot of people that came through there got a lot of tickets for loud music and the things we're talking about.
Good.
I'm bringing more guys with me next time, just so you know. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I see a problem in You know the place where Music Unlimited is? Along this 14, runs 38. Cars coming from Guadalajara, turning left to East 14, we have a problem with there because cars are parked right from the corner all the way through. We need breathing space from there, from pedestrian lane back. Because cars parked there and left turning vehicles are having difficulty going out of East, going to East 14.
Okay. I'll pass on all these areas we're speaking about. We're somewhat limited with our bodies right now as far as enforcement goes. However, patrol is starting to help out with a lot of the other calls that we used to go to free us up for some of the enforcement, some of the other things that we could target. So I'll get people down there. It might be a little bit, but also we'll pass it on to patrol and we'll try to get some extra enforcement. Just us being in the area sometimes works as a traffic calming measure. So thank you.
You know, I was wondering, would it be supportive if, in a situation like that, if we kept a track, if we were able to catch the license plates and notice they were consistent, and then maybe after 10 days supplying that to you to see a consistency of exactly who is turning that corner?
As far as for the beat officer or us, you know, that would help. The problem is identifying the driver. A lot of this stuff happens at night. So for us to blindly knock on the door for, you know, the registered owner's address, and what we could do is possibly just say that we're seeing this vehicle all the time coming through this area and speeding. And sometimes that in itself, either it's a kid in the house that's doing it, or they know that we're on to them in a sense, so they're kind of curb some of their behavior.
Yeah, I would think. The other question I had was, how effective are the cameras? I had a tenant that was right across from the library that has been there 10 years, and walking through the library at 10 o'clock she was mugged. She was mugged by a car coming by, 3 gals jumping out. But there's a camera on East 14th and there's a camera on Bancroft, I believe. And I was wondering, she had the color of the car.
Are these surveillance cameras or?
You're talking about the red light cameras?
Yeah.
What happens with the red light cameras is that obviously you run the red light, it's going to snap a photo, and it also takes video. However, if she were to have a description of the vehicle or something like that, they can monitor those to see if it had gone through that intersection at some point.
Okay.
So, yeah, that does happen.
Yeah, and I was wondering, it might, that's the first time that's ever happened at the library, and it was pretty severe. She was out of work for a week. And I was wondering if it would behoove to have a camera in the library, because it's very well lit when you walk through it, but
the library they do have surveillance.
Oh, they do?
What happens in an incident like that, though, if we get a crime that's occurred and we start doing our canvassing and checking with witnesses in the area, that's part of the process that the officers take, especially now with all the media involved as far as cameras and different things that are potentially capturing an incident. That's part of it, usually what we're incorporating into a report that we'll go and check addresses for cameras or potentially reports of an incident.
Lieutenant Tudor, the detective lieutenant, actually can speak to that issue about surveillance cameras and how they use that information for evidence.
We use surveillance video a lot. We have systems in place where a lot of businesses have surveillance systems that are probably not the top quality, but we can get some of that video, and we've got equipment that can basically break it down so it enhances the quality of the surveillance system. The issue with surveillance systems, a lot of people have them, but they're either not turned on, they don't know how to use them, or it retapes itself after 24 or 72 hours. So that's the first thing. When we have a crime that happens, if it's going to happen on MacArthur Boulevard, I think some of you heard about the vandalism that happened along East 14th. We had officers basically going to every business, knocking on, saying, hey, do you have surveillance video that's going to show the front of your store during that? So we really use that to our benefit. Now, I can get an image of Matt, so to speak, but if we don't know Matt, just because we have a picture of somebody, that really doesn't mean that, okay, we have the picture of our suspect, but obviously that's when we use our law enforcement capabilities, creating a flyer. We hand it out to local police departments, and then maybe to the probation department, and they go, oh yeah, this is so-and-so, he was on probation, this is one of my clients. and then we can develop information that way. So if you're a business owner, please know how to run your surveillance systems. If you're a homeowner and you have a surveillance system, please. I don't know how many residential burglaries or incidents that have occurred on residential areas that when we do our little knocks around the neighborhood, that we do get video evidence, and that's very helpful to us. You know, today everybody has smartphones, everybody wants to be a YouTube star and filming stuff and putting it on all these social networking sites. So that is a big change in law enforcement now. That, in fact, we've had burglaries that have occurred or crimes that have occurred in San Leandro before we can even get the report. Someone's posted it on YouTube already. So I don't condone you that you do that because that limits our ability to investigate a case. But it's something that we look at, analyze. If we don't have the equipment to enhance it, we have a forensic lab that we can send it to.
Before we take any more, is there anyone here who has a question regarding any code compliance issues? Weed abatement, things like that? Yeah? Okay, hold on just a minute. Rich? We have a question.
Next cycle.
What's that?
Next cycle.
Next cycle.
The recycling place there at Safeway. I mean, it's a little domino effect. Our recycle bins get...
You're talking about over here?
Right.
Yeah.
Our recycle bins get robbed, whether it's our recycle bin or the garbage company's recycle bin. Nobody wants to take responsibility, but that leads these people into our areas, into the private areas of our house. I found one guy way back in my driveway, almost ran him over, was backing into the driveway. I don't like them that close to my house. They have then an opportunity to be by the fences, to look in at things. The problems with Next Cycle and the filth and the people that it draws, the crime that comes along with that as they're going through either bicycling or with the carts that they steal. It is that little straw that broke the camel's back, that it's there all the time for us. And how long have we been working on that?
About 3 years we've been working on getting it removed. It's coming close, I think.
It's a real problem. It's a real problem.
As far as the debris removal, or just having the recycle bins on the parking lot?
Everything that's connected with that Next Cycle piece and its location is an issue for the neighbors in this area.
Actually, I'm going out there today to talk to folks that run recycling. I've got a complaint that the debris piles up there, accumulates, they don't really take care of it. The problem is, they're not always there, 24 hours a day. It's not it's sitting right out in the middle of the parking lot. So folks will come by and just drop things there. Might be able to get them to take better care of it. But as far as it being there, or private parking lot, it's been approved, they can have that there.
The good news about that, and Carol and I have talked several times about it, and it has been about 3 years. It's coming. It's just, you're going to have to be patient with that site. If they didn't have it at that site, they would have to move it to the plaza site. Because by rule, you have to have that recycling center within a mile, a certain radius. Well, there's no room there. That's like on Pack and Save, they have it on the side where no cars really park, and it's not an issue. Here, it is an issue. Your residences all around there, and you got people dragging their stuff through the neighborhoods, and it's understandable. And I understand what you were going through, but it is coming. They have decided to relocate that. It's just that they have to find a spot. Yeah, one more. But it's coming.
I have a follow-up question. At that time that you got there and that guy was in your driveway, deep in your driveway, and you almost hit him, did you call us?
No.
It's a partnership. We need to know. Because the patrol officer driving down the street may not see him in your driveway, but if you call us, we will go find him or her, and we'll deal with it. So really want to encourage people on those kind of neighborhood issues. We'll see some of them, but we won't see all of them, and we really need to know. Some are very good about calling. some in your neighborhood are very good about calling. And then
You're running over, it'll be a lot easier to find.
then it'll be a traffic issue.
Now, how many folks know that it is a citable offense to take, okay, good. So when you see, the problem is that when you call, and we want you to call, when you call us, by the time the beat officer gets there, he or she may not see it occurring. But if you give a good enough description, and I mean, we know the regulars pretty much, we'll find them. Okay, there's not too many people on bikes with the 300 pounds of trying to ride next street. So we'll find them, but once we see it, we will cite them. And for a while there, especially on the north end, the patrol officers were out there and they were issuing the citations for that. Yes?
Does that also apply to commercial dumpsters in a shopping center?
On the private property, that owner of the property would have had to have told us that these people are not allowed on the property.
Because I manage Marine Square Shopping Center.
Mhm.
We have a constant issue of guys coming through with trucks with plywood on the side and loading up the cardboard.
Right, and taking the
Security
cardboard.
tries to chase them away. They just figure out where security's at and sneak back in.
The thing to do would be to make sure that your security personnel are Johnny on the spot when it comes to calling. As soon as they see them pull in the area, they know what they're going to do. I mean, those
Yeah.
high-sided little
We didn't
Toyota truck
think-
with
we didn't
5,000
think
pounds of...
that- We didn't
Yeah.
think that you guys would come and enforce it because it was private property.
Absolutely, that's a
Okay.
theft. If you're not giving them permission to take that, that's a theft.
Where did you say they might move now?
I don't know what the location is, but I believe it's
Well, I thought
north
you
of here.
Did you say the Palma Plaza area?
No. Washington. Washington, the other Safeway.
Okay.
That one.
I just thought, let's not put something, one more thing near
Right,
high
yeah,
school.
exactly,
Yes.
right, yeah. No. Not there.
So, I don't know, it's been probably some months ago, but what do I do with something like this? So at the Safeway, I saw 3 guys in a car who looked like they didn't belong in the neighborhood, and they were smoking a lot of dope. And then they get out, and then they go into the Safeway store. So what do because I don't want that in my neighborhood.
Okay.
So what kind of a call do I put in? It's not a 911 call, but I mean,
Just what you told me.
Oh.
Non-emergency call.
Just
I
that.
just saw a couple of folks who were sitting in the car, they're in here smoking dope. I can smell it, whatever, that's how I know. Here's the description, and you've done your part. Now, is that a high priority call? No, but you may have a patrol officer, we have Daniel Callahan here, she may be sitting down the block. She may have just left a call in that area. She'll go and she'll investigate it. But if you call and give the best description you can, sure.
That's worth reporting.
Absolutely, because you don't want it in your neighborhood.
I'm a property manager, Balfour Plaza apartment. I'd like to appreciate police department for quick massive response.
Thank you.
Last month, we called about drug activity incident. They came immediately and problem was to get it there. Problem was solved.
Thank you. And you know what? We try. We try. And most of you that have lived here for more than 15, 20 minutes, you know that you're going to get a little better service here than you are in other cities. That's just the way it works. Our chief and the last 3 that I've worked for anyhow, they've always said the same thing. We're a full service department. Now, it's getting to the point where the calls for service are, you may have to wait a little longer, but we will respond. Lieutenant Tudor was just talking about the vandalism that happened on East 14th. That was from the 1200 block, I believe, all the way up, or southbound down East 14th Street. Covered quite a bit of area and there was a lot of damage. Other cities would take that as a very low priority case, and that's not, they'll investigate it when they get to it. They're jumping all over it. They want to solve it. We want our business owners to stay here. We want our residents to stay here. So we have to do our part, and we try. We try. Any other questions? Jessica?
Is there an officer here that can talk about gang-related activity in our community and the updated status on what we should know?
Yes, go ahead. You have a specific question or just kind of?
I manage residential property. We have tagging on the building. A lot of times the officer might say it's related to a specific gang. How do we know that what gangs are known in our community and what is being done, and what should we know and be aware of?
Well, we take a very proactive stance when it comes to our gang activity. We really take a strict, fine line, and it starts with our school resource officer who's here. We have an officers that has send a bunch of training in schools that specifically to identify gangs. When we contact this alleged gang member, they get put into a database that allows us to, whenever they're run, they're a known gang member. We get that graffiti, like a tagging, for instance, you know, there's different gangs from Hispanic gangs, you know, white supremacy gangs, African American gangs. So some of those gangs have specific tags. We'll get that, we'll analyze that information. Sometimes, you know, you'll see on different graffiti that it's either they're claiming a certain territory. But we're very fortunate here in San Leandro. Yes, do we have gang members here in San Leandro? Absolutely we do. But do we have like just certain neighborhoods that it's just gang-ridden, rival gangs shooting it out? No. But we do have issues that we address proactively. We have our street crimes unit, our tactical unit. One of the members in that unit is very proactive, identifying gang members. And when we do get reports of shootings, we try to, or stabbings, or any gang fights, we go and handle those problems head on. We don't want people flying their colors on street corners claiming a certain area. If that's the case, they're going to be, it's going to be very difficult for them. We're going to make things difficult for them. It's going to make blocking stops, traffic stops. We're going to do some enforcement techniques to make them feel not so comfortable in their particular areas. But we ask the public's help as well. And if you're seeing an increase in vandalism, so to speak, or an increase in people kind of hanging out in certain areas and causing problems, please call us. We'll come out, we'll address it, we'll identify it, and we'll try to get these people known into our systems. What you see typically with gangs is that you'll have, let's say, a family member, a brother, that's in gangs and he's an older. Now you'll see in our junior highs, you'll see their younger brothers starting to, you know, get into fights and causing problems. So that's where our school resources officers come in handy. And that's where the school officials, that's where everybody, it's a partnership, identifying the high-risk use so that we can provide some early intervention with our school resource officers or with something that the school can provide to them.
I also wanted to second this man's comment. I've been living in San Leandro for 9 years and unfortunately have had to make a lot of phone calls to the police department. And the police department has been extremely responsive. I've never been disappointed, and I'm completely impressed with the department overall. In spite of that, it feels as though the police department is overwhelmed, and maybe it's a staffing issue, but what I'm hearing is that you're using a lot of new technologies to possibly make up for that and become more efficient in what you're doing. It seems to me that crime has become more brazen lately, from the guys stealing the grapes in front of City Hall, to the monthly robberies at the Quick Stop, to the 2 girls breaking into multiple homes and stealing pets and cashing reward checks, to every single bank in our downtown being robbed this year. It seems like San Leandro is a crime magnet. And I have friends that live in other cities that don't tell me that this kind of stuff is going on in their communities. And I know it is, but the perception is that San Leandro has gotten really bad. And it didn't, when I moved here 9 years ago, it wasn't like this. It was an up-and-coming neighborhood, a great place to invest. Our house was burglarized 5 years ago. We feel like at this rate, it's just a matter of time. We're going to count our days before it happens again. We know, there's a clock running, and now we're looking into getting an alarm system. We're not even sure that works. We're not even sure that, because people are so brazen, that the burglars, they know that if they can get in there and get things under 30 seconds, they're good to go.
Well, I can address that issue. As far as the burglaries and alarm systems, I mean, I know you had multiple issues that you wanted to brought up there, but specifically the burglaries. One of the tactics that and this is Detective Isaac Benadu, he works residential burglaries. One of the tactics they use when they interview some of these burglars, they're pretty candid. They'll tell you if it has an alarm system, a dog, or it's a neighborhood that has an active neighbors kind of out watching us. We're just gonna go to the next block and see, because they don't want to deal with those types of issues. Yeah, people are getting crazy. The people today that would maybe go in and shoplift now know that, I'm going to walk down the street, I can, either get a gun, let it be fake, real, whatever. I can say, give me your wallet, I'm going to take it. That takes what, 10 seconds? I mean, people are desperate, those type, and you're seeing And what we're seeing, and I think Isaac can explain this, especially with the burglaries, we've had several residential burglaries where there have been juveniles, and they have parolees that have been in and out of prison their entire adult life, teaching these young juveniles, all right, this is how you're going to break in this house. I want you to steal this, this, and this. And then you're going to get your cut when we go sell this at a flea market or a pawn shop or things of that nature. So I'll let Isaac kind of discuss, some of the issues when they're interviewing some of these suspects, what they're looking for, and it's kind of the things that they're doing and why they're doing it. So Isaac, why don't you...
My name is Isaac Benbow. In case you didn't hear, I'm the burglary detective. I specifically investigate residential burglaries. And I've been doing this for about 5 years now, upstairs here. I've investigated numerous burglaries. I've interviewed countless criminals that we've taken into custody for these crimes. And I can tell you they come from all walks of life. There's not one specific gender or stereotype of individuals out there that are burglarizing homes, anywhere from juveniles to seniors. And it amazes me. Just when I think that maybe we've got a lead on a particular group that might be targeting your neighborhoods, we'll get them in custody, and then they start to arise in other neighborhoods. So, and they come from Oakland, Alameda, within our own community, Hayward, unincorporated San Leandro. So it's really a difficult crime to get a hold of and to curb. What you can do, and as potential victims, is just educate. My job to educate you and then educate each other on things you could do to prevent yourselves from being victims. And like Lieutenant Tudor said, these are all mostly acts that are just random. They're not targeting particular homes through any type of research. It's walking down the street, driving down the street, looking at a house, and them taking a couple seconds to calculate that house it has valuables inside and nobody's home. And whether it might be your home appears nice curb appeal, manicured lawns, and I'm not telling you don't do that. But then there's no car in the driveway, and then no signs of any type of surveillance systems or alarm system. If there's any indication whatsoever that there's an alarm or the house is monitored, they're going to move on to the next one. And home alarm systems are extremely inexpensive. They're attainable by everybody. There are companies out there that will come in and put them in your homes for free with low monthly monitoring. Home surveillance systems are now, the technology is at the point where it's now affordable for us. This isn't 5-10 years ago where it was thousands of dollars. You can go down to Costco and spend a few $100s, get a really nice home surveillance system, you put it up, cameras here and there. Those things are picked up by suspects and they literally move on. I always talk to my victims after they've been burglarized, and now they have an alarm system, and now they have home surveillance after the fact. And I understand that. Unless you're a victim, you just think it's not going to happen. With the increasing price in gold, this is what I see as an indicator to where my burglaries start going up. Gold is at an all-time high, and everybody has gold in their homes, and we mostly leave them out in our dressers or little jewelry boxes, and they're not in the bank or in a safe. So they're going to go into your home, they're going to access your house through a window that might be open for ventilation because the weather's warm, we like to leave a window cracked. Easy. They get inside, they're in there for a few minutes, they're going to take cash, gold, electronics that are small enough for them to put in their pocket, laptops, things like that. They're usually going to probably go in your closet and take a backpack or a handbag, put the things in there, and they're gone. Literally, less than 5 minutes, in and out, until you come home and you discover that you've been the victim. So, and this is the education part of what we can do to help each other not become the victim of a crime. You want them to go next door.
$500.
And your neighbor wants them to go next door. Exactly.
If I could, I want to address, we're almost at the end of our time, but a few of us will stick around if you have independent or individual questions. I wanted to address one part of your question. It was kind of a multi-part. You know, last year, we measure crime, one of the easiest measures of crime is Part 1 crimes. They're Part 1 of the penal code. And they're the serious crimes: murder, robbery, rape, burglary, mayhem, larceny, and stolen vehicles. And we measure crime by that. And last year, in San Leandro, crime was at the lowest level it's been in 30 years. But if you were burglarized last night, it's not the lowest level in 30 years. Does that make sense? So I think that that's one of the measures we use. And we look, every month we get a report from our records division of reported crime, Part 1 crime, and we look. And robberies are up a little bit. We've, as a command staff, we met. We're looking to use some of that grant money that we got to put some more TAC officers out, special street enforcement officers, to help curb some of the robberies. The daytime curfew that the chief talked about is specifically targeted at not only keeping kids in school and reducing violence, but reducing burglaries. Because if a young person's out during school hours, we're going to have a reason to stop and ask them what's going on. Maybe they're on the way to the doctor or whatever. But many of our daytime burglaries are committed by young people that are out of school. So we take the steps, we look at the trends, and this is, you can't do police work off of a graph. But we look at those as indicators of how we need to adjust our services. And then the biggest part of it, and I think one of the reasons crime was down the last year so much, and we've talked about this, is the partnership with the community that we have. We can't do it by ourselves, and that's part of the reason we wanted to come here and hear your concerns so we can continue that partnership, continue to grow. This year, robberies are up a little bit. I think burglaries are up a little bit too.
Burglaries are up only because we had a team that was out over the last 3-4 months that were hitting homes 2 or 3 at a time a day in San Leandro. They have been arrested. We have probably closed out about 12 cases. When I say closed out, we actually have sent 12 cases to the district attorney to be charged against this person. And this person was a female, and she was a young adult. So again, when we think of the stereotype burglar, you know, she did not fit the mold. So it's just, it's anybody you can imagine. Again, this was a very good observation by an alert neighbor that saw something suspicious, and they felt that it wasn't right. They made a phone call to the police department. We have units that will respond immediately, and she was apprehended. And through an interview, we were able to determine that several other homes that she had committed, she had burglarized. We recovered property that belonged to people here in San Leandro. So this is a continuous investigation, and we're continuing to discover more victims and return more property.
You know, we've run out of time. We'd love to stay all day, but we've run out of time. And so there's a couple things that we can do. Many of us will stick around if you have individual questions for a little while. We have other work too that we have to go do, unfortunately. We'll be here for a bit. Lieutenant Turk, Tudor, CID, Detective Benaboo, Burglary, Captain Preco, Operations. Chief Spagnoli will be here a bit longer. Rich Holman from Code Compliance and/or Animal Control. Officer DeGrano, Crime Prevention and Admin Services, and a couple of our patrol sergeants and traffic sergeants they stepped outside for a minute, but we're available to you. The next Coffee with the Cops, if you want to continue this conversation, is going to be at Dick's Restaurant at 8 o'clock on October 11th. Is that right, son? October 11th. It's a month from now on Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. And we would love to have you there. We'd love to continue this conversation with you on a one-on-one level. You also have all of our numbers. It was on the handout. Everyone who was here today, with the possible exception of Detective Benaboo, is on that list. He's probably got a couple of cards if you have specific questions. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to come meet with us this morning. We've gathered a great deal of good information.